Hello guys and welcome to another video on how to create a app within Python Tkinter app development. Thank you very much for attending. Here's an opportunity. I'm going to teach you guys part three on how to create a button within app development with Tkinter. One thing to know is that Tkinter is really it's a useful tool to be able to create an app for personal use within your programs, within your personal iOS program or OS operating system. With that being said, let's go ahead and get to part three of this development, which is going to be how to create a button within the Tkinter session. So here I go. What I'm going to do, I'm going to build off the last two videos where the first video I showed you how to create a simple screen. The video number two, I showed you how to create a label. What I'm going to do now is use that same file that I was using before and show you how to create a button within Python. Now here we go. Here, as you can see, this is the same code that I used before to show you how to create a label and how to create a main screen where we're importing Tkinter, everything from Tkinter. I imported sys just because I may use that in a later video, but we set our Tkinter main window to tk root equals tk. Now our second function here, root dot Dimitri, I can't say it right now. This essentially gives us the size window for the main window within the Tkinter app. Okay, and then this second function here is titling that main window as your favorite app. Then down here beneath that, this is our label, the label that I showed you in the last video, which I'll run here again by pressing F5. And you'll see it says label 1 cool. Within this label, you'll see that I labeled it the root, which is the main window, which we're going to be running it into. That's the parent window. The width size, height size, background equal to green, foreground equal to black. Text is going to be label 1 cool. And then I set the font to Verdana. I can't say it right now. The size is going to be 15. It's going to be bold. And then I padded it, both the X and Y coordinates by 15. With that being said, I'm going to move on to creating a button. A button essentially allows you, it's beveled or sunk in to allow you to be able to function. It's basically a padded label, but essentially that's what a button is in any context. But what I'm going to do is right now teach you how to create that button. So we're going to call this button 1, which is going to be equal to the same function that you would call within Tkinter for a label, except for this time, instead of saying label, we're going to call it a button. A button is run the same way, okay? So we're still going to run it through the main root window because that's going to be what they call the master. I call it the parent, you know, that's what we call it because none of us like to be slaves. We call it the parent window, which is the main window that every one of your functions is going to be run from. Now it works, a button works similar to a label, right? It still needs a width, it needs a height, it needs a background color, foreground color, text, and font. So a button works exactly the same as a label. So what I can do, I can copy this here. I typically don't copy, I typically write it out again, but for all intents and purposes, I did it just to save some time. And this one I'm actually going to title, we're going to make this size 10. We're going to name this actually device, which is another, it's a system font. This one's going to be submit. The foreground's still going to be black, but this time we're going to make the black background a different color. So this time we'll make it gray, okay? Which the function is already gray. So there's a way to, I think it justifies the function. So height, this time the height's going to be 5. And then we're just going to go ahead and pack there are two ways to be able to pack it. I'm gonna run this really quickly just to make sure everything's cool. All right, unbound method pack configure must be called with button instance for argument. Got nothing instead. All right, button one dot pack. I'm actually gonna try running pack up here and see what happens, because what I know, what I was taught is to call the button pack function down here. I've seen people call it up here, but it could be the version of Python that's being run or used. All right, so yeah, this does work. And as you can see, the button with Tkinter is already, uh, I don't want to call it pressable, but yeah, that essentially serves the purpose. Like you can press and it changes, bevel or embossed, it changes. And I'm gonna change this because I don't like the way it looks. The width needs to be longer. I'll call that 10, and the height I'm gonna change it to 2. Run it again, and I see that the pack function does run at the end here, which I typically run it here, which isn't too bad, but for me, it tells me that I'm doing something right. Um, so as you can see, the pack function can be run either way. If you want to pad it, again, you can pad it. Um, And for this video, I'm going to show you again that you can actually change the foreground color. So this doesn't have to be black. This can actually be blue. We'll call it light blue. And then we'll call this italic, which, let's see if that changes. Italic. Yes, so that did change. And I'm actually going to change that back to black. Or blue. Blue is dark enough. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Successfully italicized button within Tkinter. And one of the things that you'll notice is that Tkinter also, you'll see that I placed the button beneath the label. And I'm going to show you this because this is the way Tkinter works. Remember, it's a program. I'm going to do this, actually change these around so I can show you that the button will now be placed on top of the label. Right? Run it. Bam. Now, I'm going to show you this too, how you can move this around, because if you set the side, which side is another option, and I'm still learning this too. If I set the button side equal to, let's say, bottom, which is a parameter for the side option within either the label or the button, what will that do? Okay, so it still moves it. Essentially, this is a large window, right? And if you don't set your parameter, if you don't tell, Tkinter within your main window what to do, it'll set. Essentially, it'll use the same option. So the button that you saw before was on top of the label. The button then changed positions to the bottom once I set the side to the bottom. So I'll show you this. If I set the side of the label to the bottom, you'll see that they're actually next to each other. And this is just my guess, because essentially the main window serves as it still sets them on top of each other, or one on top of the other. So why? That's actually pretty, So the label is beneath the, learn something new every day. Boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom. But ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, the button takes precedent on the bottom. That could be something as traditionally buttons are on the bottom, but I doubt that's the case. With this, I'm gonna leave this, put this down here just because it makes sense, especially when developing an app that things make order. I mean, you can change it around, especially if you're trying to stop people from hacking your stuff. And then I'm also going to pad this, because pad x equals, and x, actually pad y equals 15 because I want to give it some space.